All right, folks, welcome back. I'm going to go ahead and call the order of the Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, September 4th. It's now 6:55 p.m. Pat, if you could take the roll, please.
Clark.
Here.
Millar.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Tylen.
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
All present.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. I do have one small change on the agenda I'd like to propose. Number 14 and 15, I'd just like to swap those so we can get, because Matt's is going to be here for 12, 13, and 15. So if we just swap those, we can get it all done at once and send Matt home. So I'd entertain a motion with that change.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Number 4, citizen comments on agenda items. Didn't see anybody signed up. Is there anybody here that would like to speak? Seeing none. All right, moving on to number 5, boards, commissions, committee correspondence. There are notes, there are minutes from the Cable Commission from June 6th, Cable Commission from July 11th, the Police and Fire Commission from July 16th, the Police and Fire Commission for July 15th, and the CDA minutes from March 1st. I would entertain a motion to approve these minutes unless there, or I'm sorry, to recognize the minutes. How are we doing that? Or do we
I
just?
think after digging into this, I think what we
Okay.
need is just a report.
All
Like
right.
our department reports. So questions and discussion can take place, but no
Okay.
approval or anything.
All right. Any questions on the correspondence? All right, seeing none. Moving on to number 6, consider and review clay lateral program and potential expansion. So we've had this in front of us a couple of times. This is where property owners are able to receive a grant if they are getting their lead lateral replaced to help offset the cost of clay laterals. There is a memo in our packet about this. Today, there's a little bit of an update. We currently have 8 properties that have taken advantage. We have some other properties that are interested that are outside of the construction project. So what the city is asking for is if it's possible to consider those and see, they want to see what we think. Patrick, do you have anything else to add?
Really, I think you explained it well. I know the initial intent was to make this a pilot program with the project, and there was support for solidifying it into a more permanent project, but we wanted to kind of see what the pros and cons took place during the project. But we've had some folks who are participating with Water and Light and the lateral project, and they wanted to inquire about the clay lateral project as well. It's not too many, 3 or 4 that have asked about it. So just thought I'd bring it forward. It's an opportunity to see some other clay laterals get switched out, which was the intent of the program.
So the ones that have asked about are residents that are already getting their lead lateral replaced now.
That's
And would like
my
to piggyback the clay lateral.
since digging's taking place, already. So
Okay. Okay. Any questions, concerns, Michael?
I'm in favor of expanding this, especially to coincide with the lead lateral replacement funding that we have right now. It just seems to make sense if there's a qualified plumber that's gone through the processes that's laid out with Water and Light for their lead lateral replacement. I think it makes sense if there's a need to have a clay lateral replaced to do it at the same time. I think just this year, with the budget that we approved to go along with this project, we haven't really tapped much of that funding, so there are funds available to do it, and I think we can just continue to kind of evolve along with the lead lateral replacement program, or if needed, adopt an actual city ordinance. There's some language in the memo from Rupert Milkey down here about what that should include, but I think we should continue to kind of evolve what we have right now into a more strict policy, more long-term program.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My initial notes I took down were, I would like to see anybody that is replacing a lead lateral be able to take advantage of this program, whether it's inside or outside of the project, as long as it's within the city limits. But I would like to start with limiting it that, if someone else is having a problem with their clay lateral, I think we should, keep those separate. This would be, there's guidelines that the Water and Light has for the contractors, so, this keeps it, all in-house and pretty clean. So I would like to start there, and maybe we can look at something later, but. So. Anybody have any questions or comments? Do we want to move this forward with, giving Patrick the okay to reach out to the 3 or 4 people that have reached out to him? Or do we want to also maybe kick this back at a later date too, to come up with an actual policy or an ordinance or whatever it needs to be?
That was already prior direction that we had planned to
Yeah.
do, so.
Okay. Myrtle?
I guess I would ask Patrick or Attorney Johnson what official action you need from us. Do we need to go to the next regular meeting for you to extend those opportunities to the people that have contacted you that are getting the lead service laterals replaced? Do you need a nod and
A nod and a
Yeah.
thumbs up sort of thing? That's
to
what I
continue.
was looking for, yeah.
I don't have any problem with that. I don't think we're changing anything drastically because they're already working with Water and Light.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there you go. You got a nod and oh, Jason. Jason, come on up. Maybe not.
No, certainly, that's your prerogative. I did want to point out that, I'm not sure if it's on Patrick's list or not, but one of the individuals that contacted me had a very poor sewer lateral, and it wasn't in conjunction with a lead replacement. And so you had mentioned you wanted to kind of keep it bundled together, which is fine, but I just wanted to let you know, either it might be on your list or it might not be, but I know there was at least one that reached out to me that had a plumber investigate, and they had some issues that they were looking at replacing. So I just want to at least make you aware that there were people out there, I think, that weren't doing the lead replacement that may be seeking this too. So if you wanted to limit that, to kind of keep it at least initially, under some kind of a check, that would be fine. But I suspect as time passes, you will get more of those requests for just, sewers that may be bad or people that are replacing them. So
Okay.
keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
and if that's, I understand what you're saying there, and we have the opportunity here, if we're gonna, I think the direction we're gonna give Patrick is the 3 or 4 that property owners that are in the project that contacted him, thumbs up. And then we can move this back to the cow or another meeting and discuss further, what we wanna.
And some of the people that contacted you aren't in the project though, correct? Yeah, so they're outside the project, so.
Are there any in the, oh, I'm sorry, I meant in the, I don't know what I said, but I meant within this city, as long as they're getting a lead lateral
Yep,
replaced.
okay, yep.
Sorry, my apologies. Mike?
I think this is going to continue to evolve because my understanding of the funding that Water and Light got originally, those lead lateral replacements were done within the scope of the James Street project initially, and that has kind of grown outside of street reconstruction projects to individual properties. So I think we kind of need to mimic that to an effect, if that makes sense. Right now, we're going along with whatever properties they'd be working with on the lead service laterals. However, as Jason points out, if someone has identified a failing, sewer clay lateral, would they qualify for this grant that we're offering or not, I think is what we need to determine sooner or later. I don't know that we can do that tonight, but we have approved a budget to this point.
Right.
I feel safe working within the budget parameters, I guess, to a certain point, if there's something that's identified, but we haven't spelled that out in an ordinance as to the mechanics of how that's all gonna work. So maybe we need to start framing up an ordinance and getting it back here.
Yeah, I think we've gone through it enough now with those within the project that we can use that to formulate the ordinance and solidify the program, so we can bring that back.
and speaking from personal experience, several years ago, I had to replace my sewer lateral, and I did the lead lateral because of the construction at the time, but the driver of my project was the sewer lateral replacement, so I can understand other people might be in that situation too.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should certainly talk about that further. Trina?
Well, I would definitely like to look into funding to help citizenry with laterals. I'm just wondering what the parameters of the original grant were and what our options are.
Good question. Mike?
So you're talking about the original parameters of the lead service lateral? That was federal money given through the DNR, from my understanding, to the local utility on if they could identify the lead laterals. It's a reimbursement program that occurs through the state, but they only have that money for a set amount of time. I believe there's some conversation about seeing what can happen maybe beyond that time frame, but there's also state legislation that has approved the lead lateral replacement to go beyond that now, where the utility can put together their own package about how they're going to fund lead lateral replacements within the utility. That's my rough understanding anyway. So I hope that that program is going to be around for a while to get the lead out, as Eric says.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Okay. All right. There are no other question on this. We should be,
I would ask that we just continue the conversation at the next committee of the whole and see if we can try to start working on an ordinance that makes sense.
yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Next up, I have number 7, consider and review bids for wastewater treatment plant effluent sampling facilities project. Sorry. Information. There wasn't really a memo in the packet. We did get just the Rupert Milky from Jason. Jason, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, Council, this was one of the projects that we had a task order for a little while back for the wastewater treatment plant. And if you remember, there was a effluent sampling requirement by the DNR that we sample the effluent at the discharge point, which there's some sampling down there, but there's some changes that were required to be made, and it had to be effluent. The sampling had to be further downstream in the process to kind of catch some of the blended processes, if you will, that occur. And so we put together a package working closely with John down at the wastewater treatment plant and went out to get some quotes or bids for this project. And we did get 2 here, $27,670 for Sable, and then Midwest General for $31,231. And so both those bids are contractors that we've used historically in the past, are familiar with the plant. They do wastewater work in and around many communities here in the state. And so we're very comfortable with those. As we noted here, that the time frame completion is 3 to 6 weeks. So we are obviously recommending going with the lower bid here. Going back to the costs, the original projected cost was about $45,100 when we had came forward originally. That's kind of where we had it budgeted with the wastewater accounts. The reason why it came in a little cheaper was, I'd like to say that we just got a good bid, but we did find a way to engineer the sampler into the existing facility rather than have a separate structure for it. So we were able to do some design work and get that approved with the DNR, and it made sense. So we were able to save some costs by doing that. So essentially, we are within the original planned dollars for that particular improvement. And I think we have a reasonably good price here and a reputable contractor that's done work for the city here recently. So I guess with that, any questions on the sampler project? All right.
I do not have anything. Anybody else have a question? Okay, so we'll move this forward with the, to accept the recommendation of Sable Mechanical, the low bid.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. All right, next up, we have number 8. Resolution 1418, exemption from Columbia County library tax for 2019. This is housekeeping. We do this every year. The city needs to request via resolution an exemption from the county tax. And we actually have two in here. We have a Dodge County one as well. So we'll need a resolution for both. If anybody has any questions, otherwise we can move this forward to the next regular meeting. Okay. We'll go ahead and also, number 9, 15-18, resolution, request exemption from Dodge County Library Tax 2019. We'll also go ahead and move that forward to the next regular meeting. All right, thanks, guys. Next up, number 10, social media and website policies revision update. Looks like JT's coming on up to the mic. There you go.
Yes. On automatically. Thank you, Jesse. So, who's excited to talk policy tonight? All right. So, I'm going to lay out two ways forward we have on this. Then I'm going to give you a brief, very brief history of the city's website and social media policy, and then kind of feel out how council wants to proceed. First way forward is I'm prepared to dive right into this tonight with a focused walkthrough, very focused walkthrough of the two policies that are in your packet. Then I could field any, questions, concerns, comments you may have. Or I know that council has only had the holiday weekend with this, so if council wanted to take more time to really dive into these policies, that's of course your prerogative to do so as well. But the history, as far as I'm aware, Patrick, if I'm ever wrong, feel free to jump right in. But I do believe that the city sort of eased its way into social media sort of informally. To the extent that we even had a policy, I'm not sure. But this, in any case, in 2014, the council decided to get rid of city social media at that time, which they did. And aside from a few accounts which weren't deleted but were inactive, and essentially the city was off of social media in 2014. Then, as part of what I can gather, the website review that Dave Carlson was doing, there was also an effort to bring the city back into social media to sort of dip its toe in those waters again. And so a social media policy was drawn up and approved in July of 2016. And that's the current policy that we have on the books. It allows for one quote-unquote main city Facebook page, a Twitter account for the same, a Facebook page for recreation and the aquatic center, and then within the last few months, council also approved one for tourism commission. So when I first started as an intern, literally the very first piece of paper that I was ever handed as part of the city was the website content and social media policy by Dave Carlson, who said, "I don't think you'll ever need to read this, but here." So he gave me that, and pretty quickly I identified some places where we could grow, where we could improve. And then in January of this year, Patrick and I began the review process, and that brings us to today, where we have two what I would consider first drafts for the council to consider. So with that, does council want to take more time with this, or would you prefer to dive right in immediately?
I have questions.
Yeah, go right
So,
ahead.
I think we can certainly start the conversation tonight. Whether we can finish it tonight, I don't know. As far as the website administration policy goes, in the last paragraph, fourth bullet point, it says links directing users to departmental pages where more information on a program or activity is displayed is one of the outlets that can be posted on the website. But I noticed that on our website now you have links to social media pages. So but this is just mentioning departmental pages. Are you considering the social media page a departmental page? Or are you referring to the websites? Because this is the website side of the policy. So if you're linking to an external, or I'm sorry, a different department's website page, I think you need to define or mention that links to users to departmental pages and social media pages or however you want to word that, but I think there needs to be a difference. I think it needs to be spelled out.
Right. So I will say that what I consider to be a departmental page, and maybe these things should be more clearly defined, is really any resource internal to the website. So these are for things that can be posted on the homepage. So a link, you may not consider agendas and minutes to necessarily fall under one department, but I would consider that a departmental page for how I work with things internal at the city, that's the responsibility of a department, generally the clerk's office, to upload stuff to that. And as far as, do we allow social media or links to external sites on our homepage, I would tend to want to shy away from listing things in too much specifics, just because I don't want to get, I don't want to hog time myself later if I want to be able to do something, that could be useful to the general public. And those social media feeds are there now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that after this policy is enforced that they will be. Council may have noticed that in the last several weeks, the website menu structure has changed somewhat, where things are being moved around and the website's in a bit of a state of flux right now. So to where things end up, just because something's on the homepage right now doesn't mean it always will be. And I'd like to keep our options open when it comes to those pages. I would tend to consider these bullet points more best practices than anything.
Well, the reason that it caught my eye is because somewhere else in the policy here, I can't find it right now, but it says that you have to have approval to put something out on the city website page. But you don't have to have approval for another department to put out on the Facebook page. Only that department head is, and now you're linking that Facebook page to the home page. So I was just concerned that there isn't a, chain of command that's appropriate.
Sure. I would say that is sort of addressed underneath the social media policy, in that the administrator under the new policy is given administrative rights to all pages. So he in this case, would have oversight of those pages at all times anyway. So we're never really in a situation where something is happening to the homepage of the city website that the city administrator can't step in and deal with immediately.
Okay.
Should I continue down this road, giving you guys a walkthrough? I'm seeing some nods. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Well, we'll start with the website administration policy, and I'll jump right down to number 4. I'll kind of cover things in broad strokes here as just sort of the largest changes that were made. A lot of the language, well, first of all, I should say that website and social media were covered under the same policy before. We've now broken those out because see them as two separate things. They should be two separate policies. And in the website policy in general, we have tried to paint things with a broader brush, in the sense of before, who could do what with the website was very defined. It was one or two people's responsibility. But the way the website has evolved, it's now each department is contributing a little bit. So we wanted the policy to reflect that it's not just now the responsibility of one person or two people, that it's now a collaborative effort of all the departments in the city. On the second page of that, you'll also notice an addition of a community calendar. This is a feature that I would like to see implemented on the city website, where we're sort of a one-stop shop for all things Columbus. This is something that other communities, namely Wanakee, some Prairie, are doing. I try to emulate their websites when possible because I think they're doing a really good job. But I wanted to call that out because it is a bit of a change from what the website's doing now. And then continual review, again, we broaden that out so that more people are being part of that continual review process. We're making sure that information is always up to date, current, and correct on the website. Any questions on the website policy there before I move on to social media?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I had one question about the postings to the community calendar.
Mhm.
What are you envisioning that to look like? I know that we've talked a little bit about this at the Tourism Commission as well, but would this community calendar be right on the main city website?
Yes.
Okay.
So on the homepage of the city website now is actually a calendar. It generally just lists like city meetings, but library, rec, and senior center have started to use it to advertise some of their events. And what I'd like to see happen is that to actually be embraced by the community at large and start to ramp it up slowly, just, bring in civic organizations first. This is really looking to replace the library's community calendar that they used to have, where all of the community events were posted there. That community calendar is no longer, it's defunct. They've shut it down. It's just been outmoded by better technology now. And the library actually turned to us and say, hey, could your calendar serve as a replacement? And I got very excited. Because I think it could. And I'd like to see, in an ideal world, the city website become that one-stop shop for all things Columbus, but just starting slowly with civic organizations, partners with the library, rec, that sort of thing, and then eventually broadening out to what I would do is set up a submission form on the city website so that anybody could just type in all of the relevant information, and I and whoever else would need to be a part of that process would get an email showing that, hey, this person wants to have their event on the city website. We include language in there that says we reserve the right to deny any event for any reason. But then just sort of start to create that, it's really more of try to create a little bit more of a community website than just strictly a, municipal government website.
Sure. I like the idea of that, but I guess if we go down that road, I'd probably want to have a little bit more tighter language in there about that process, about how you could, if someone is denied posting something on there because it's inappropriate, of having some reference in the policy to that. It just says, not organized by the local government. I get what you're trying to do, but I still think you might need to add a little language just to kind of tighten that up, just to show that there's discretion, there's a process, it needs to be submitted and accepted. Because you're going to have some sort of criteria to base what you're going to put on that calendar or not, so,
Okay.
thanks.
On that same section, I had a question. Bullet point 2, it says the city reserves a right to review or deny any event submitted. Is it review, did you mean approve or deny, or?
What I meant by review there is really have internal discussion. So if we wanted to reach out to the person who submitted it to try and get more information from them, that, hey, we're not just going to post it because you submitted it. Maybe we have to reach out to you for more information there.
I gotcha. And then when you said the city reserves, I would like that to be more clearly defined on who the city is. I mean, is that Patrick? Is that the city council? Is that you? Is that Matt? I don't know. So I would like that a little more defined.
I can do that.
Clark?
I guess I was going to go down that same line. What you have here is several different departments posting their own content on the site. And I think it's helpful to have a single point of contact, a buck stops here kind of person, where someone is accountable for the content that's on there. I don't know who that should be, but the way it's drafted here, I can see a potential for a lot of finger pointing and no accountability for something that might go wrong.
And then one more question. First paragraph, postings to departmental page, first bullet point. I don't quite understand what you're trying to say with that sentence. It says postings that highlight an upcoming program event deadline can be added to the department head without prior approval.
I should probably say department page.
I'm sorry, it should say what?
Sorry, it should probably say the department page without prior approval. Trying to say that really
Oh,
departments have discretion to
added
update their pages,
to the
their
department.
individual pages, however they choose. You don't have to come and check with Patrick when you want to say, hey, swim lessons have been canceled.
Page. So instead of head, you meant,
Yeah.
we want page
Thank
there.
you.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, sorry. And then last, under continual review, second bullet point, the content of the entire website will be monitored on a daily basis by the city administrator or the community outreach coordinator, which is you. I would actually prefer to see something more along the lines of the city administrator or their designee. I don't know what your job duties hold on a daily basis, how much time this takes up. So, I mean, I would rather see something for this, give Patrick the flexibility to assign someone to be reviewing the pages daily.
Yep.
Or even if it is you, I mean, naming community outreach coordinator, I mean, that job title could change next year or from 5 years from now. So putting it in a policy, I would rather see it a little more broad.
I think that's actually a good idea and actually brings it in line with some of the other policy changes we
Yeah.
made.
Okay. That's all I had on the website administration policy. Anybody else have any questions on that? No? All right, JT, you want to go ahead and dive into the social media one?
Absolutely. So for this one, we can jump right down to number 3, policy. Item 1 is I've added language defining how a department, a committee, any sort of affiliate of the city would go about actually getting a page that or a social media account. That was something that was not defined under previous policy, and I think set up a situation where you could end up with a patchwork of oversight or lack of oversight in some cases. So not that was happening yet, but I was just concerned. So we have a clear path forward where first it's reviewed by the city administrator, then by council for final approval. 2 through really 10 are sort of best practices points. Try to be transparent with the public, letting them know that some of this stuff is public record, letting them know that their comments can be deleted, and we'll get to that in a second. Letting them know, trying to include links back to the city website, things to increase reach and all that great stuff. So those are pretty much, just best practices. Then point 11 is partially intelligent control. This is where we get into establishing uniform oversight and giving the city administrator access to all accounts. This allows us to do 2 things. One, in a situation where maybe we have a post is made that is just not flattering to the city, or just requires somebody to step in and moderate our posting. It gives the city administrator the ability to do so on all accounts, and also in the event of an emergency where we want to get information out to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, we have access to every account to do so. Then number 4 is probably the most significant change to the policy, and that is the addition of a comment policy. And this really gives city staff, when they're managing these pages, some policy to fall back on, something to they can point to, here's what you violated with your comment if it's unproductive or inappropriate, that sort of thing. And it gives ability to city staff to remove that content. Before, in the earlier website and social media policy, it actually said that all city pages will be push only, or would not allow commenting, essentially. That's actually not possible with Facebook pages. So our policy was requiring something that wasn't possible. This is designed to sort of get towards that same thing where we're not, where we're able to put a check on language that is inappropriate. Something we can actually fulfill. We can delete comments. We can't turn them off completely. So with that, any questions on the social media policy?
Paul, I have a question. Is that infringing on anybody's First Amendment rights by deleting or removing comments?
I think that if you have a policy put in place and the content of what you're trying to, or what you're going to contemplate removing violates that policy, I think you're probably okay for the time being. I mean, the website and the social media policies are yours. So you don't necessarily have free speech on somebody else's platform. So I think that's where I would start that conversation anyway, and how I would look at it.
Okay.
And that's also one of the reasons why it's important to have a policy like this put in place initially.
Okay. Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, the only thing I thought is, even if it's unflattering to the city, I don't mind if it's unflattering as long as it's true.
Yeah.
So if it's true and unflattering, I think it could be out there. But if it's, they just want to complain and it's not true, it should be, not be on our site.
And to that, I'll say that we don't, you disparaging the city is not grounds for removal of a comment. If your comments are, not related to the original topic of the post, those are grounds. If you use profanity, those are grounds. But yeah, if you respectfully bring up a point on a city post, you're allowed to do so.
Oh, Michael Clark.
My question is, I mean, while some of the stuff is pretty straightforward, who is the decider about who has violated a policy?
It would be whoever is managing the page in question.
So we have many deciders.
Mm-hmm.
And those can vary.
Could, yes.
Yeah.
I understand the
I
concern.
see problems there.
Yeah, I understand the concern. However, I'll say that it's probably not realistic to expect one person to be able, unless you're employing them full-time to do so, to manage and review every single comment that comes across every message, every page gets all the time, that this is likely going to need to be an effort that is diffused across many hands.
Well, I hate to suggest it, but perhaps before any deletion happens of any comment, that it could be brought before several department heads to get an agreement on whether or not a comment has violated the policy. I just hate the idea of the subjectiveness of this getting into the problem, the enforcement of it. And this stuff's pretty clear, but maybe you need to actually go a little bit further in what these are. I don't know, just food for thought. Social media is such a sticky wicket.
Yeah. I mean, we're human, right? We're not machines, so we're not going to be able to judge every comment the same equally. Just by who makes it could affect our judgment.
Yes.
I mean,
What offends me might not offend you.
exactly. And I take your point there, but I'll also say that, if you have one person or one panel of people doing this, at some point you're going to need to change out those people, right? You're not going to have those same people doing it for all eternity. So at some point there's going to be somebody who probably applies the rules a little bit differently. You can try to minimize that as much as you can. What I would suggest, just for efficiency's sake, is that we just develop rules that the council feels comfortable with, and then allow administrators of the pages to enforce them as they see fit. But obviously, if council feels differently, then council feels differently, and I'll have to rewrite it.
Trina?
Just along the same lines, I was wondering if we can put in some type of review panel for things that have been removed, just a procedural element for people to apply if they think their comments should still be there. But I believe that people do need to be able to immediately remove a number of comments without taking the extra time to check with department heads. That there'll be just a number of situations where things need to be taken down right away.
Patrick?
I kind of like where that's going, because I'm more likely that I'm going to be the decider if it's the one person, and I think, to take it a different tact, if it's something like if I'm preparing a letter or some sort of communication, I always refer to someone else, another set of eyes to make sure, what I'm sending out, intent, grammar, whatnot. And in this case, it's kind of the reverse, but what do we all think? Does this, so you got to keep efficiency and some stuff's going to be obvious, but I kind of like that road that you're taking us down on that.
And when I say panel too, and that could be even electronic, like, email distribution list of all the department heads or whoever is managing the content to say, hey, what do you think? I mean, obviously salacious language or profanity, whatever, that I don't think needs too much review. But, it's a subjective part of it, but I certainly don't want to gum up the works either with process. But I think it could be done electronically.
I agree with that, and I actually kind of had this thought when I was sitting here thinking about this is, would it make council feel more comfortable if maybe at the end of the month or just in our packets, Patrick provided and just a list of things that were removed just as a memo? That way it's transparent. I just popped in my head. I think Patrick should be probably the ultimate decider, with his, department heads as he could lean on, but I don't know. I like what Trina was saying. Trina?
Oh, so I like the idea of just keeping records of what is removed so the information can be checked upon, but I would not want to receive dozens or hundreds of pages of questionable comments in the packet every 2 weeks.
I like your enthusiasm that our social media pages are that popular. I would say, I couldn't imagine it would be more than a handful of things that would ever get deleted, but I think there should be some record kept as well. So it doesn't have to be a report, but it just kind of popped in my head. Mayor Tom?
I think I'm looking at policy 3.0, number 5, where the city reserves the right to take down any abusive or inappropriate post that violates the policy. It kind of spells that documentation
does.
out there, and I'm thinking what I'm hearing is you just add to that section there as far as whom's going to congregate to make that decision if they need to have more than one person looking at that, and that it is documented. Whether we get a monthly report or not, I'm not really interested. I think that, you could start receiving complaints on social media that your comment was deleted, et cetera. My overarching concern about this entire policy is the same as it was 3-4 years ago, in that it seems the intent is to distribute information to the community, which I get, but you're also entertaining conversation which you have no control over, and then you have to have that discretion as to what is productive conversation and what is not, and that everybody has a different version of what is appropriate. That scares me, because you're adding this role to everybody that's participating in it as far as city employees. It states things in here about monitoring their pages. I envision something being posted on the city Facebook page at 7:30 on a Friday night when someone's gone on vacation and the backup hadn't looked at it, and all of a sudden on Monday you find out there is a forest fire on your Facebook page and no one's looked at it, and then you have to put a fire out and determine what started this problem and delete comments potentially, which just creates more drama. I get it, we're evolving as a society. Social media can be beneficial. I'm not convinced that it is always beneficial, so it is balancing that very fine line and having fair expectations of employees and people that are engaging on social media. It just has me a little bit worried that you're adding a lot of responsibility to someone and what benefit. The benefit we're hoping to get is that we can push information out to people, like swimming lessons being canceled, et cetera. That's not very controversial. But it doesn't take very long for something to become very controversial on social media. The last thing I have noted on here is the very last sentence in the entire policy where it says, the city will hold a standard practice of allowing comments on a particular subject to remain visible on a social media post for a minimum of 7 days. Could you explain that a little bit to me? I don't understand that. Does that mean that the post will be removed after 7 days?
I think, yeah, the idea being that not every post will be removed, but we reserve the right to delete our content if necessary.
Okay.
So it being that, hey, we're at least going to have it, if we decide that a post that meets all other qualifications of our policy, meaning it's a quality post, it's not, some disgruntled employee saying something, right? If it's useful information, but we decide a few days in, hey, actually, we don't want this information out there anymore, what we're saying here is it's going to be part of the public record for the next 7 days, at least. So that, we're playing above board, essentially, right? We're not trying to seed out information and then, oh, nope, take it back, right? That if we're going to do something, we're going to do it judiciously and we're going to do it with purpose.
Can that policy backfire on you?
I think any policy could backfire on anyone.
I mean, it seems like we're committing ourselves to 7 days when we maybe don't need to.
Mhm.
I don't know what's going to supersede, whether it's the constitutional freedom of speech or Facebook terms of,
Wisconsin public records
user
law.
agreement. There's a lot of things to consider there.
I actually think you could probably bring that down to 4 to 8 hours, to be honest with you. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but 48 hours gives you enough time to consider what you posted and whether or not it's something you want to take backsies.
Yeah, I mean, you're painting yourself into a corner by, putting it up there for a week. I mean, it's probably gonna be up there for the next 5 years, but anyway, but I don't see why we have to, I don't even see why we have to put a number on it at all, to be honest with you. Trina?
I'm just having very mixed feelings, kind of along the lines of Tom, of even having an open Facebook page for the city. I love the idea of having something that the city personnel can give information out of and give updates. And I would like for the public to be able to offer up their updates of events and things that are coming up, but have it very screened before it's put up for the general public to view. Just
Mike?
I hear what you're saying, Trina, but I honestly think that the way social media works and how fluid it is, it gives the city the ability to really put information out there quickly, and people can subscribe to it or not. Not everybody goes to our website to look for the information unless they have something they're looking for. Having something in a news feed is very helpful, and quite honestly, the approval process can really hamstring a social media site. But, it comes with that baggage, so you kind of got to balance the two. I don't know. I think that personally, the city needs to move in this direction, but it really needs to be careful about the commenting part. And back to the 48 hours, saying 48 hours on social media is an eternity.
Yeah.
I mean, people screenshot it, it's out there forever.
Right.
So.
I mean, number 4 could just simply say, the city reserves the right to close any posting at any time. The end. Mayor Tome?
One thing I wanted to mention, I had a note on here when we're if we adopt this policy, would it make sense to have a list on the page that shows all of our approved or active social media pages that we currently have, and that we address those as we add them? And also, I think that would be an appropriate place to list the name, not of the person, but the position who's responsible for the oversight of that page. When we go back to what we've been discussing about documenting anything that's taken down, obviously, that person that posted it is going to be involved. You don't want to necessarily turn everything into a committee, but there still needs to be accountability in case someone did post, a city employee, and posted something inappropriately or didn't realize that. There still needs to be accountability for everybody who's hosting their individual pages. And I think for the most part, that's documented very well in here. What you can't document is what's going to happen on the other end, the conversation you're inviting. But I think by having all the pages listed and the people that are in charge of them shows that there's, this is what we have and this is what we're accountable for, and anything else that's out there on Facebook that isn't documented is not ours unless it's on that page. It wouldn't be too hard for somebody to create a fake Facebook page.
Right.
I think it's been done before, so.
Think so?
I'm just guessing.
You made me think of something when you said active pages. In this policy, I did not read anywhere that mentions a way to keep the page fresh and content fresh, not stale. And I think that there should be a consideration to the minimum amount of posts that you put on a page monthly, whether it's monthly, bi-weekly, quarterly, whatever it is. I think there should be a number of posts that need to be on there to keep the page relevant. Otherwise, it's just a page that's out there, and you post in 2017 in June, and then the next post is in August of 2019. So I think there should be some consideration to that as well. That should be in this policy. I don't know what that number is, magic number is, but we should do something.
Yeah, I'd have to spend some time thinking about it, but I think, as I said, there are quite a few points in there that are really just best practices, and maybe including something to that effect, I think, is probably a good idea.
To add to your comment, I don't disagree with the point you're trying to make, but it goes to one of my concerns I mentioned earlier, is that if this is something that's going to be an expectation of an employee, that they have a responsibility to maintain a page now, or a Facebook page, they may not have a very good understanding, or they may have a very good understanding of how social media works. So it may only take them 10 minutes a day to maintain a page and throw up a couple posts every day, where someone else is trying to figure out how it works. They're not sure what's appropriate. So I think there's going to have to be some guidance given by JT and Patrick to kind of help guide them on what's appropriate and how often you do it. But I can see someone like the rec center or the pool is very active when they're open, but in the winter, the pool's not going to be posting much. So it's really hard to put that into the form of a policy. But I think that the spirit should be outlined. If you're going to have an active page, you want it to be used or utilized to its greatest degree.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't consider those winter time,
Yeah.
especially for the pool. That makes sense. I like what you're saying. That makes sense. All right, so how about you take this information tonight, bring it back to the next committee of the whole for further review?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good with that? All right. Thanks, JT. Further discussion on crosswalks at Dix Street. On Dix Street.
Sure. This is part of our ongoing discussion about crosswalks and safe travel for students getting to school. And we had started to look at Dick Street as part of the review that was presented to us. There was thought that there had been more crosswalks on Dick Street over time, but some maintenance may have covered those. We have since uncovered information that shows no sidewalks or crosswalks within the last 5 years, but that, I guess, is just kind of information for us to look at. In talking with Jason, and he didn't stick around because he said he's looked at the intersections there from an engineering standpoint and from an installation standpoint. All we need to do is paint the crosswalks in. There's not really a recommendation as to which intersections we'd choose. Just find one or two between Maple and Fuller Street where we have them. So it's really up to us if we want to put them in and where we would put them. So it's not quite as scientific as I thought.
So what are you asking of us?
If you, yeah, I think so. I think with the number of intersections that you have from Maple to Fuller Street, maybe it'd be appropriate to put two in, space them appropriately. You've got Sunset, Chapin, Sturgis, Brevity, you know, just put two in there that you could connect.
Is there a crosswalk in
Fuller has one, yes. Fuller and Maple.
I'm completely fine with adding some things to the road to increase pedestrian safety, so unless anybody else doesn't.
I had thought there'd be more like ADA concerns related to that, and Jason said we're set up, you know, really to plow ahead, so.
Right, John.
I'm in favor too. Do we need to bring this back to the next regular meeting to approve really, or is this just a nod and a wink again? It's paint on a road, it's not a sign.
Right.
Okay.
Although, what we would probably like to do, we have those signs that point downward to the, so we could put that up on the regular meeting for approval to install those with the crosswalks.
Yeah, if you can identify the intersections that
Right.
that Jason and staff thinks would be appropriate, then bring it back and we can approve the signs. But I
Yep.
think the paint can go down whenever it's available.
I think the guys have a bunch. They're painting on Avalon, so.
Oh, I was just looking for a aerial map just to see the options for where the crosswalks could go.
Okay. We can bring that forward
To-
at the
at the
regular meeting
regular,
if you like.
yeah.
Indicate which ones make the most sense, and then show the signage that we would attach to those.
Okay. All right. Everybody good with this? All right. Next up, I have number 12, Downtown Beautification Task Force Report. And I have Matt Schreiber here. Go ahead, Matt.
So earlier this year, during the C.O.W., there was a discussion that came out of, well, it started with, should we hang some banners from the light poles downtown? And that's kind of morphed over time into something bigger. At the direction of Patrick, we formed this Downtown Beautification Task Force to look at making improvements to the public areas in the downtown. So that basically means anything in the right-of-way that the city has control over. That's started thinking, you know, banners, garbage cans, things of that nature. So we convened a meeting in July 31st, and then also on, I think it was August 21st. We've had two meetings. To garner interest, I went door to door downtown asking businesses if they would like to participate. I gave them a letter and they could contact me. Also, I did a press release to the paper saying, you know, if you're interested, please contact me. And then I also put the same press release on our website just to get the word out there. And also JT helped me put it on the city Facebook page just to get the word out there and let people know that if they want to volunteer, they're welcome to come. So basically, after that, we started holding meetings. As I said, we've had two to date. And the bullet points on the memo really are the big things that we've discussed to date. And also, Trina attended the first meeting and Kasha has attended both. So if I miss anything, if you want to interject from your vantage point, things you've noticed during the meetings, please do so. But we've talked a little bit about raising funds for the improvements. Carolyn Fredericks has received a donation or a commitment to a donation for the banners in the downtown for up to $5,000 from Bob Grow. So we're starting with that. And then also, I have applied for a WEA trust grant that Patrick notified us of. It's through the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, partners with WEA Trust. So I put that grant application together, and JD Milburn is also looking at a few other grant opportunities to help fundraise for this effort. But just to highlight some of the things that's happened so far, we've reached out to a couple local metal fabricators to see if they'd have any interest in producing the trash cans. Right now, we have technically we have 3 trash cans in the downtown area. There's 2 up by the Four Corners. There's 1 outside of Sharrow's, and 1 is outside of Cardinal Embroidery, kind of between Cardinal Embroidery and Webb, Wisconsin. And there's 1 down by the police station, and the one from the police station is kind of hideous. I mean, just to be blunt about it, it should be replaced. So we're looking at working with the local metal fabricators to hopefully make something that looks good, that's unique to Columbus, that is also functional. Obviously, it can hold garbage and recycling. Banners and flowering baskets were the consensus from the group that we wanted to hang them from the light poles. I have been in contact with Eric Anthon as we're going through this process just to make sure what Columbus Water and Light, since Columbus Water and Light owns the light poles, we want to make sure that anything we'd propose is within their, that they would approve of anything that we'd propose. Also, one of the things that came up was bike racks. Right now in the downtown area, there's 1 bike rack out in front of the library, and I don't know if a lot of people know it's there. It's kind of hidden behind the sign that's over there. And one of the things that came out of the discussion was that the Bollard-style bike racks, which if you look in the packet, there's kind of it gives you an idea of what a Bollard-style bike rack looks like. It actually is, essentially, it's basically an arm that sticks out of the ground, and there's a circle on it, which is interesting because after we had the discussion, I was walking out in the hallway there, and one of the Susan Stair portraits has like the old hitching post for when horses used to come downtown. So I thought it was kind of interesting that those kind of resemble that in a way. One of the things I would note is last week, Wednesday or Thursday, as I was leaving, I was stuck at the stoplight up there on the Four Corners, and I looked to my left, and somebody used the light post basically as they should be using the bike rack. And I wanted to take a picture of it just so I had evidence, but unfortunately the light turned green and there was a car behind me, and I couldn't get my phone in time. But the intent is, behind the bike racks, is we have these new on-street bike lanes going through the downtown, and I think having those amenities down there would be something that would be attractive and would encourage that sort of activity through our downtown area. And then obviously the other thing was park benches, is looking at what park benches are out there and working with the property owners to make sure that we have a more uniform look to some of the park benches that are out in front of the businesses. And once again, a lot of these metal fabrication, like the Bollard style bike racks, the benches, the trash cans, all of this we're going to try to work with. And it's predominantly been Nathan Roberts and Todd Fry that I've reached out to. But try to work with them to the extent possible to, hopefully keep, obviously, the local business, but also have that unique touch that, that we could kind of brand it as Columbus. So that's where we're at to date. I'm sure there's lots of questions. One of the other things I guess I should also mention that came out of the last meeting that was, I thought, helpful to me, is that each of the members of the task force are kind of taking on homework assignments in between meetings. And this is beneficial to me because then I'm not doing all the work. I mean, the task force members are truly bought into this process, and they're pitching in. And out of that, I have a meeting with C.O.W. Extension agent on Thursday in my office to go over the First Impressions program. That was something that was brought up by Liz Davis. And essentially what the First Impressions program is we get 4 or 5 volunteers, and we go to another community and kind of like secret shop their downtown, and then do a little write-up. And the other community sends 4 or 5 people to our town and does the same thing. It kind of gives us good feedback on our downtown and our community and things we need to work on as a whole. They don't just go to the downtown, but it's part of the experience, so. With that, any questions?
Actually, it's not a question. I noticed, yeah, I'm glad you brought up the point about the subgroups. I like, I think there's a lot of opportunity to get things done quicker that way. And it looks like we have meeting minutes for another meeting that happened. I think this is Kasha's.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you fill us in on how that meeting went?
On the Wednesday after we met for our Downtown Beautification Task Force as a large group, Becky Widener, Paul Steiner, and myself met at the workshop and discussed opportunities going forward for our like assignment, I guess is what I'll use. So one of the things we talked about was what the big impact is on the polls. So what are things that are concerns, and those are listed out. Then we identified 2 other things that we thought could be projects or contests or what have you. One of them we thought would be a banner art project, and then ideas of who we could reach out to support that idea. Thinking the idea would be more of a community-based sort of thing. This came from Trina, I think was more of her idea of like, how do we have like maybe an art contest? Do we get students involved, schools? We included the different art teachers, and I think one person we may have forgot was the library director. We thought that she might have good input into this particular area as well. And then we just tried to identify different things that we thought could be things that might be good to have on a banner, or what would our concept be. And then our third idea was the bike art project. And one of our thoughts in relation to that was, how do we tie that together with some of the other art projects that are going on in the community, like the library art project and their design of what they're trying to do in the center grassy area out here. How can we maybe tie that together, or can we tie it together with the benches and the things that are being done? That's sort of where we kind of reconnect with some of the other projects that are happening out there in the community and kind of get sort of a theme to our city. And so this is just a product of our brainstorming session. And then we just kind of reported back to Matt.
Thank you. That was, yeah, I was very impressed with all the notes that were taken from that meeting. One question and on the bike racks. I definitely agree there needs to be bike racks downtown. I'm not sure what that number is. I think I saw 8. I don't know if that's too high, but or too low. I don't know. I think they started at like, you started at like 20 or something.
Yeah, I just, in that map, it's more of potential. I just kind of threw dots on the map to see, and I was thinking going down James Street, you know, in between Dickinson and Ludington, that you'd have maybe 3 on each side, so that would be 6 total, and then I was thinking 4 from James down to Water. But then after discussing it at the meeting, and I don't necessarily disagree with this, that the task force thought that was too many. And one of the things we threw out there is just phasing it in. And obviously with the bollard style bike rack, you can only do 2 at a time. So it'd be 1 on each side. The predominant reason that was preferred rather than the grid is because the bikes would park parallel to the sidewalk and parallel to the street, and therefore it wouldn't block the sidewalk. If you had the grid style, it would, you know, you'd either have to push it up against the building or something else, and the bikes would stick out into the walkway, right. And that you wouldn't keep that 5-foot width. Because when I looked at the plans for the downtown, it's a 5-foot wide sidewalk, and then there's a 3.5-foot terrace. So you only have 8.5 feet. So that really kind of eliminated the grid style bike rack from consideration. I mean, you could have done it, but just had it at like the city, like the parking lot behind Capri or by Capri, that's city owned, and then the other city owned lots, you could have just put one there. But then would people actually use it if it's kind of hidden back in those parking lots? So.
And do we, maybe Paul can answer this, do we have an ordinance regarding leaving property on a bike rack or a street pole for extended periods of time? Because the thing that worries me about having bike racks downtown is someone parks a bike there and it's locked up for 8 months and doesn't move. And now you're just storing people's bikes outside.
Yeah, no, I didn't, yeah.
So
That's a good point.
I don't know if there's an ordinance, or maybe we should consider that.
I think that answer is no.
Okay.
And it would be a good idea to consider that. But then the question is, what do you do with it if you're gonna take it off the pole?
Tell
Or
me.
off of the rack? Yeah. You're gonna create a process similar to towing tires.
Right. Well, that's,
Okay.
yeah, the downtown is, lots of activity, and I just see a potential that, I think it's great for Monday through Sunday during business hours, lots of businesses are down there, even, taverns or whatever, but I would hate to see it being used as a parking spot for people's bikes that maybe live above the residences, above the businesses, I don't know. Just something that popped into my head. Mike Clark?
I'm just curious about the scope of this task force, because we're talking about garbage cans, banners, benches and whatnot, and then I flip over and we're talking about snow removal ordinances and weed removal ordinances. Is that the scope of this task force?
Well, in terms of the snow removal and weed removal, it is looking at the sidewalks in the downtown area, so technically that is within the purview of what we're looking at. We're talking
We
about the
have
public
s-
spaces in the downtown, so considering ways to make sure the downtown looks nice, and, part of that is gonna be snow removal and weed.
But we have snow removal.
Correct, but we're
Ordinances.
taking a look at that. There's not, obviously, anything that would come out of that would have to be approved by this board. But I think there's definitely a disagreement between members on the task force on how big of an issue the snow removal is. I know J.D. Milburn was very much supportive of what we have in place right now. And as far as the weeds, though, I think pretty much everybody was kind of, there was a general consensus that, there's an issue with
Well, I think
weeds on the
there's-
sidewalks, and
I think
people
there's
need
an
to
issue with
maintain in front of their
enforcement.
building. Yeah. So I guess I don't know what that's gonna end up at this time, but I mean, that's just definitely something that has been a discussion topic.
And
Okay.
Mayor Tone?
On the bike racks, I like the bollard style. And I'm assuming you would locate those on the perceived terrace area,
Correct.
so they're away from the sidewalk. And I think you could probably change the design element a little bit to suit the local community, but you might be able to get more than 2 bikes in there. But you can
Yeah.
also space these 10 feet apart if there's more bike parking needed in a certain area. But the few areas I thought of that would probably suit larger grid type, or maybe the wave, would be the police station, because they
Yeah.
have a large area in front of the building. I know Dan had talked about getting a bike rack down there when he was here yet. And also the library, I think, has an old kind of ganky one out front. But if you want them all to be
Yeah.
uniform, those would be places to start with the larger bike racks.
Okay.
And what was the other thing here? Oh, on the poles, there's a lot of notes in here about banners or plants, et cetera. I haven't heard much lately about the Christmas decorations, but it's my understanding, since we've gotten new poles, that the old Christmas decorations are not going to conform with the new poles, and that the city may have to buy new Christmas decorations for that. My concern there is that, are we gonna have 5 mounts on every pole that are gonna be changed out, or can we have a mount that would serve 2 or 3 different purposes? You probably wouldn't have Christmas decorations and a banner and a plant at the same time, but being able to change those things out for seasons, I think, is the theme I'm getting here. I just don't wanna have too many things that need to be filled all the time, or it will appear to be cluttered after a while.
Okay, duly noted. I know Carolyn's brought up the Christmas decorations, and that's on this group's radar, and it's gonna be discussed. As far as what that entails, that's really out of my expertise when it comes to what's gonna be supporting these items.
Sure, and if you could use a universal mount for multiple
No,
things, I
I
think it would
think
be a
that's,
benefit, yep,
I-
yep,
that would be my preference.
sure,
I mean, that makes the most sense.
sure.
It also would be the most cost effective,
Yep.
since you're gonna have multiple things on the,
And
on the light bulbs.
the one last comment too is trash cans, great. How about recycling bins?
Yeah, it'd be, yeah.
Yep,
My hope is we could have something where it's just kind of a dual,
sure,
like each trash can will have half of its recycling and half of its, either that or you're just gonna have to put out separate cans, maybe have them different colors or something, I don't know.
sure.
But that was also brought up by I think Liz Davis brought it up after the meeting in an email to the group saying that we should definitely include recycling in it, and I agree. And that was my intent. I just always use the word trash cans just to be, I guess, keep it simple, but.
Sure. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Kasha?
I think this might answer one of Michael's concerns. The minutes that we have are just specifically related to our part of the project. These other items were things that in the larger task force, we identified as potential issues. And I think however far they go will depend on however far those particular point people, how much effort they put into that. So, I'm hoping that might answer some of your concerns.
I guess I was referring to the second note under polls where it said find out what polls can support and what could be appropriate. That was my suggestion, is that if you can get one mount to do multiple things, if the DOT approves this mount and you can put Christmas lights and a basket and a banner on it, you've got 3 options at that point. And I don't have those answers. I think that the DOT is probably gonna have to approve something that's hanging on a utility pole within the right-of-way of the highway. And I think, Matt, you've checked into that already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kasha, were you referring to Michael Clark's comments about
Right,
the
more
weed
that,
removal
right,
as
yeah.
well?
So I think his concerns were more about like these different aspects of other people's assignments. And I don't know that, mine are the only minutes that are in here right now. I don't know that the other people have met or proceeded with their portion of it. So I don't know that we have an entire picture of the progress from the last meeting, so.
Thank you, clarifying that. Yeah, I mean, this weed, the weed thing has really got me thinking, are we talking about in front of buildings, on
Correct.
sidewalks, like
Si-
city
sidewalks.
sidewalks growing between the cracks or up against the building? Like who's,
In some cases, in between the buildings, but most prevalent will be on the sidewalks in front of people's buildings, yes.
okay. I have not come across weeds on the city sidewalks on my nightly walks, but not we're glaring that I've noticed. I'm sure
Yeah.
there could be some snuck in here and there, but, all right, thank you. Mary Jo.
I guess one last thing, as far as funding goes, have you had good buy-in from businesses or other partners, chamber, et cetera, at this
At
point?
this point, we haven't done a full-fledged
Okay.
fundraising effort.
Okay,
The businesses that we've reached out to participate have, Todd Fry's been very interested in participating in this. I'm not really sure, what the costs are gonna be to that, but I mean, there's buy-in. We have a good group of businesses and a good group of stakeholders that have come together on this. And at some point, you're right, we're gonna need to go to like the Chamber of Commerce, and when I go to the chamber meetings every other Tuesday, or the second and fourth Tuesday, I give a little update on this. All right, I try to the extent, I mean, also, there's a couple chamber members that go to these meetings, so, at some point, there's gonna need to be a large scale, fundraising effort. And that's always been the intent of this group is to get some private donations as well as, at some point, there's probably gonna need to be some sort of public commitment. Carolyn is relaying these messages to Davis, because a lot of times these things are gonna create work for Public Works. And it's something that I'm trying to be cognizant of. The other thing is we're looking into the May Ward Fund as hopefully a mechanism to keep the ongoing maintenance. You know, if we're gonna be planting flowers, we're gonna have to do it every year. So we wanna have the tools in place for people to make donations to hopefully, so it doesn't have to be 5 years from now, I'm coming to city council saying, hey, we need to raise money for this because we have these flowering baskets now. I want to make sure it's done right, so in the future, it's not always a constant ask of the council.
Sure. I appreciate that. I appreciate the grant efforts as well that you've
Yeah.
brought forward. One last comment. I think at a tourism commission meeting recently, we did toss around the idea of maybe looking at like a GEM grant for maybe the banner or the signage issue, which.
And that was, I believe that's one of the grants JD's looking into,
Okay,
because at the
good.
last meeting, JD Milburn said that he would look at a few grants that he knew that were available for the group. So, I haven't heard anything from him since the meeting, but I'll be seeing him shortly. I
Right.
usually do, so,
Thanks, Matt.
yep.
Any more questions or comments from Matt?
At this point, I'll just note that after future meetings, I will just put this either on the COW agenda just to kind of come and give an update to the council so they know kind of what the status is and what's going on, so they're aware of this group's activities, just as a courtesy, so,
Thank you, Matt.
yep.
All right, yeah, excellent job with that, and
Thank
you know, look forward to seeing what comes forward from that. Why don't you stick around? I got number 13 for you. CDBG close. Please explain.
Okay, so essentially, HUD, which is U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, is kind of cracking down on the states for CDBG funds, so Community Development Block Grant funds that essentially have been underutilized. And one of the, I guess, targets is the CDBG Revolving Loan Fund Program, which we have been a recipient of. One of the issues, and I guess part of the problem, is that, you know, we have roughly $450,000 in assets, and roughly 300,000 of that is sitting in a checking account and savings account earning interest. Throughout the state, I think the number's like, there's $100 million total, and I think there's like 40 or 50 million that's pretty much inactive. So with HUD cracking down on the Department of Administration, the Department of Administration has created this program and this close program to essentially take the funds away from the city, from the RLF program, and then offer essentially a carrot on the back end of a non-competitive grant. So going through the proposal, so essentially what happens is, okay, we have 400 and, let's see, I said 450, it looks like 420, I apologize. But you look at, we have two options. Right now we have loans out to Cercis Brewing, and we have a loan out to the golf course. We could either, when we fill out our close paperwork, we could either buy out the loans receivable, which means if this happened today, we'd have to cut a check for $157,335 to DOA, and then also turn over our cash on hand, which is $262.172 and or $262.172.75. Turn that money over, and then that money, that $419,508.02, is available to us in a non-competitive grant for the eligible activities under CDBG. So essentially what that means is we're assured of getting that grant as long as we still meet all the requirements for the CDBG program. The most notable one is the LMI requirement, that they require at least 70% of their projects our LMI. So it's preferred that we have an LMI project, but you could also do urgent local need and, what's the other one? I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. The other option is we don't buy out the accounts receivable, which means we turn over the loans for Cersus and for the golf course over. But our closed program is, the total is only 262, 172.75. So the benefit of buying out the loans, when that money is repaid to us, that money is defederalized. So now we'd have $157,335.27 that the city can do with as it pleases. I would hope that they would leave some money in a revolving loan fund for businesses to use. Potentially, this could be used for a facade improvement program. It could be used for a variety of other programs that we could develop here at the city. But that's really kind of the benefit of buying it out. That, and obviously, once you buy it out, the grant total is larger. At this point, I guess I'm just bringing it up for discussion. HUD has got, or DOA made this proposal to HUD, and it's still in the comment period. DOA anticipates that the proposal they have out there will be accepted by HUD, and once that goes into effect, we have 2 years from the date it goes into effect to submit our closed paperwork. So we have 2 years from, let's say, October of this year to submit our paperwork. And then whenever we submit our paperwork, we have 2 years from that date to submit our project. So within 4 years, we'll have a project out there, potentially for a CDBG project. And under eligible activities, I mean, it's a wide variety from public facilities to public facilities for economic development. There's planning, there's broadband high-speed internet access. There's a variety of things. I've already talked with Jason about this, and if we did, let's say, a public facilities essentially for a street project, he's well-versed on, we don't qualify for LMI, for the low moderate income for the city. So you have to do it in an area basis. So let's say you're doing a street reconstruction, you just do a survey of the residents along that street, and if their income meets the certain standards, then you're eligible for the CDBG funding. So I know I stumbled through this. It's a little bit kind of hard to explain, it's just cumbersome, I guess, is the way to put it. But essentially, this is going to be something over the course of the next 2 years that the council will have to make a decision on, and what course of action they want to take, whether and we need to start thinking about it now, because, I mean, obviously, budget's coming up for next year. So, are we going to budget in the lump sum payment to buy out, or are we just going to turn everything over and just start having that discussion? So how we can best utilize this opportunity.
So, with the two options, does either option give us the ability to have no fiscal liability if, say, the golf course, which I think you're referring to as Kestrel Ridge, and Searsus defaulted on their loan?
Well, if we turned over our debt to the state, then it's all on DOA to manage that and receive that debt.
So it's less.
So if we buy out the debt, we're essentially, betting on both the golf course and Cersus to pay us in full. So we have those funds that are defederalized that we can therefore turn around and hopefully loan to another business, or hopefully use for another project that the city sees fit.
Okay. Trina?
So basically the same question in different words. Is option one, we would take on the high cost up front for a hopeful return of funds in the future, and option two is simply zeroing out with no liability, debts?
Correct.
any
We
debts?
essentially, we assign our debt, we assign like the notes and everything that were given at the time of closing, we just assign it to DOA. And then DOA is responsible for collecting all payments from those businesses. And really, at that point, the city should have no more liability for those projects.
So option two, so option two is no loss and no gain.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Kasha?
I think that is essentially my question too. So if we do option two, we just essentially decrease the amount that we're able to get in this non-competitive grant in the future.
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor Tong?
Option 2 wouldn't produce any defederalized money for the city,
No.
correct? But if we go with option 1, we would have to make the choice, we would have to cut a check to the state in hopes that our money would be returned and then it would be defederalized with option number 1. But we still have a couple years before we have
Correct.
to commit to either of those, correct? Matt?
Correct. And I would note that for the Kestrel Ridge course, or the golf course, they have a lump sum payment that is due within the 2-year window. So that could, depending on which option you go with, I mean, you can either wait till the last minute and wait till the lump sum comes in and then move forward, or submit your paperwork in advance of that. So I still need to do a little planning on that, but I mean, I think we can use that to our advantage. The other thing I haven't looked at yet is looked at the payment schedules, just to kind of see in a year, in 18 months, in 2 years, kind of what this looks like as far as because I mean, obviously, we're not, it's not going to be in today's dollars because they're going to keep paying back the loans. Technically, right now, we can still make loans from our RLF, but once this goes into effect, we can't make any more loans. And with the CDA not meeting in September, not until meeting until October 1st, then if this goes into effect October 1st, it's like the odds of us doing another loan are very minimal at this point.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt? All right, so we'll look forward to hearing more about that in the future. Thank you very much. Next up, we're going to go with Downtown Facade Program. And Matt, you're still up there.
Sure. So this was something I started to put together, probably last May-ish or so, kind of leading out of some discussions that I had. And you know, after looking through our comprehensive plan, actually both the comprehensive plan, the one that was adopted in 2003 and the one also adopted in 2009, you kind of saw a consistent need for something for the downtown, and then historic, with the historic nature of it, to help preserve the downtown. And I started on this, and then since, you know, I started thinking, well, a facade improvement program would be great. And then I did expand it to all the businesses in the downtown, because I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, if somebody wants to improve the look of their business and they meet the qualifications, I think it's something that the city should consider. So what I put together in front of you was a proposal that I put together. I've looked at probably 20 to 30 different communities and their facade improvement programs, and kind of picked and choose things I liked the best and put together at least a draft outline for you to consider. One of the things that I think the city has going for it as far as the downtown aspect of it is the downtown is a historic district, which means every property in the downtown is eligible to receive federal and state historic tax credits. And being that it's really hard to come up with a grant program without either a TIF district in the downtown, or without having a strong bid district, or without having a Main Street community, I really thought that probably a loan program is probably the most feasible option for the city. And then if you can use the loan program to leverage the tax credits, and that's where the incentive is, because I mean, obviously, you know, a property owner makes the investment in their property, and then when they file their taxes, they get the they get the tax credits, they get the benefit there. So, I mean, it really, I think if we can partner these two programs together, I think it's a really good opportunity. So I kind of went through and I laid out, you know, what type of properties are eligible activities. I did mention that in the downtown historic district that the HLPC will have some review. I would prefer, if I move forward on this, that we have design guidelines from the HLPC. So there's a little bit more structure, and when property owners are going to make an improvement to their property, they kind of know in advance what they should and should not be doing. Eligible activities are pretty standard type of facade improvements. Ineligible activities are, you know, from the programs I looked at, these are fairly standard. One of the things, the terms, we're not talking about a huge sum of money. We're talking, I shouldn't say huge sum. I mean, for business, I mean, for some of these renovations, they could get pretty costly, but this will just be a portion of it, and we're going from $5,000 to $20,000. But the other thing is that it's got to be a dollar for dollar match. So if we're putting in $10,000 into a project, it better be at least a $20,000 project. So it's not going to be one of these things where it's just all the facade or the program is putting in all the dollars towards the renovations or towards the project. And one of the other things I put in here is that for collateral, having a mortgage on the property and then a personal guarantee for the amount of money we're talking would be more than enough to collateralize our position on these types of loans. Then I kind of go through the requirements. A lot of this was, as I said, stuff I saw in other programs that I liked and I tweaked. And then I put in a buy local. To the extent possible, we want to encourage people to get a local bid for the project. I did put in a few examples. There haven't been, you know, enough, I guess, for my liking, but there's been a few that came to my attention. The Fry showroom over here on James. Actually, and granted, this is 15 years ago now, but they took down a slipcover on a building and redid the front, and it looks really nice. And they won an award from the WEDC back in 2003. And then another one that kind of came to my attention, I went to a seminar up in Waupun, probably in June, and they started going through and showing some renderings, and one of them I noticed was from in town. So then I contacted them, and they gave me probably a handful more that they've already done for buildings. But this is for Red Bun Homes. I found an old picture, and I was like, I didn't realize that, and then what they've done to date. So I just wanted to put a few positive examples of what it looks like, you know. And then I put also a few examples in there that WDC already did the renderings. So I just wanted to show potentially what those properties could look like. And then I guess the thing I want discussion on is the next steps. I mean, I'm coming to you guys with this outline, and at some point I'm gonna have to develop an application form, develop some of the guidelines. There's gonna be need funding for approval for the funding. And then after that, I'll have to do some marketing, whether it's door-to-door or doing a mailer to all the property owners, press release, website, Facebook. The one thing I have down here is I just kind of put down funding options. Obviously, 3 and 4 are probably not in the cards right now. One's, I mean, you could fund it via TIF and have a grant program. And the other thing is the city could just say, I want to put X amount of dollars a year for grants to incentivize people to do this work. But right now, I've started with thinking I don't want to ask for too much and have the money sit there. But I'm hoping that, you know, if we could start with just a small amount of $20,000 and have loans at a small interest rate, so as they pay it back, it goes to the next business type of mentality. I think that would be something to at least discuss. I mean, at this point, you know, I know there's some money in the CDA reserve budget, and that's probably where I recommend it come out of. But I know that's a discussion that needs to be had at this group, and I don't want to have any. I just don't want to assume anything. So I just wanted to bring it up for discussion. And I guess I'll leave it at that and see what you guys have to say.
Clark?
I notice under the purpose you say that you're providing a means for businesses and property owners. Are you saying businesses and, say, landlords?
Yes.
All right, because, I think this is a great idea, and it's definitely needed, but we have a problem outside of businesses as well. And I don't know if this can be leveraged by anybody in the downtown area or in the residential areas, or is it just specifically the business area?
I just put businesses, so when you look under eligible properties, anything with the commercial zoning, so it's Central Business District 1 or Business District 2, which is the Highway Commercial District, or the General Commercial District, which is B3. So if you're within those zoning areas, you can apply for these funds. I did not put any industrial areas on there. That obviously, if an industrial building wanted to do a facelift, I think that, I guess that could be always added if needed. I mean, as I said, right now, this is just a draft, but I mean.
Yeah, I'm just interested in a comprehensive approach to that area, because as you go down that corridor, it gets worse and worse and worse as far as properties and how they appear on the outside.
What
If you're heading towards, say, the Amtrak station.
Oh, okay, so going up Ludington.
Right. Obviously, when we've talked about the condition of outside storefronts and whatnot ad nauseum, but I think there's an overarching problem, and it might be outside of this discussion, but
Yeah.
I just noticed the difference between the property owners and businesses.
Are you saying something like if a homeowner wants to go, put a railing on their porch and a fresh coat of paint, offer them the same opportunity as a business owner in that same corridor?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yeah, offer the same low-interest loan, I guess, to those folks as well.
So, well, the one way you could do it is you could use the mixed-use overlay district, which if you look at our zoning, basically, the mixed-use overlay basically is along James Street and Ludington, Ludington then Park. And it basically follows, it's basically the properties along those streets. I don't know the exact boundaries of it, but I know it stretches outside of the downtown for quite a ways. That could be a potential workaround.
Yeah, what I would hate to have is, sort of dilapidated buildings as you come into the downtown area and, oh, beautiful. Yeah, here's the Chamber of Commerce.
Mayor Tull?
I've done a little reading, and I think Beaver Dam's kind of going through, and they're doing some work downtown. They're trying to tighten up property maintenance codes, from my understanding, but if I understand this correctly, I think they're trying to secure US RDA financing, which I think is income-driven as far as whether you qualify or not, that they're trying to offer something to property owners to bring them into compliance if they have specific violations they need to address. I don't know a lot of. I don't know exactly, I don't know any of the criteria for this, but that's something that I remember reading in the article that they were utilizing. So maybe we could find out
So
more
it was a
about-
housing program through USDA Rural Development?
That's my understanding of what I read. There was an article a couple months ago about that. So maybe it's,
I'll look into it.
something that can address a different part of the same area, but a different financing or financial source. I wanted to jump in kind of early since this came through the CDA, and I think that the main two concerns that I had expressed at the CDA for their application, or how it's going to look, is I like the idea of extending this opportunity to the downtown business owners for the storefronts, but I'm not exactly sure how we're going to deal with a business owner that's not the property owner. Is collateralizing that
I
loan.
removed that actually from the outline, because I had under program requirements that it could have been applied, or under the program requirements.
I was
removed-
looking for it and couldn't
No,
find
no,
it.
I removed that based
Okay.
off of your comment, because I started thinking about it, and that's just gonna be difficult to implement at this time. ultimately, I think I agree, it's gonna be better if the property owner is the one making the investment. Because they're the one that's gonna be, recovering or receiving the benefit,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
So,
The other one is with the tax credits available with the historic district. I was a liaison on HLPC for 4 years, and I think that, the certificate of appropriateness doesn't have any teeth. It's a recommendation, and I
Yeah.
think what I would be more concerned about is having guidelines given to them by like the Historical Society. What specifically is the state looking for to give that tax credit, and to kind of give those guidelines to HLPC to say, here's what the state wants to see for those tax credits, to kind of make sure it's getting pushed through that. I don't want this to turn into layers upon layers of approvals for someone to do a $10,000 or $20,000 project and then have this come down to color choices or something
Yeah.
that simple. I mean, as long as the state is willing to give a credit,
correct.
the certificate of appropriateness is kind of a blessing at that point. But that certificate could change from time to time, I guess my concern is. So
Yeah.
refining that process for
Yeah.
people, I think, would be helpful downtown. And maybe the state could help give guidelines, or maybe Paul has ideas about how you word that in an application. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Mike. Does anybody else have any questions for Matt?
Just one thing I wanted to note before I was done is I do have lined up on September 25th at 6 o'clock here at the council chambers, Jen Davil from the Wisconsin State Historical Society. She oversees the state tax credit program. And then Erin Welty from WEDC. She is our Connect community representative. She's going to come and speak of the importance of doing facade improvements. So both have committed, and this week here I'll be putting out some words and probably give a press release over to Kevin here and start doing the Facebook. We're probably also going to do a mailer to anybody in town who's on who has a historic property that's registered. Carolyn Fredericks said she has that list for me, so I can use that mailer and just do some flyers in the mail to get the words out. So, and if you guys want to spread the word, please do so. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good program. And
Repeat that date and time?
September 25th, starting at 6 p.m. And I was going to talk with Jesse after this to see if he could video it for us, and also with JT, I've mentioned it, so.
Okay. So as far as the Columbus Facade Improvement Program, what do you need from us tonight? What do you, I know you took some notes, and, do you want to bring this back to another?
Obviously, I wanted discussion on the outline, and then at some point, there is an ask of funding. And I guess my question to you is, at what point should we be having this discussion? I thought, at first, I kind of put this on pause because of the CDBG close program. I was thinking, well, that might be an opportunity to get some funding for this. But in the same token, if that funding doesn't come in for 2 to 4 years, I would rather not wait. I've heard enough about the need for this type of program to think that maybe we should consider it sooner rather than later. I only have one business to date that is actually that I'm going to call if we have a program and say, hey, you asked about it earlier. This is what we have on place now, and that's actually Mike and Maria Peterson, who have the Town Tap. They've contacted me. So that's and that's without doing any sort of marketing. I'm sure there's others out there that would probably consider a project for their building.
Okay. I certainly like the idea of this program, and I think that, I'd be in favor of this. I would want to look at where that money comes from. If that's, if you have a lot of, if you have a lot of people that say, hey, I want to be a part of this, and you need a bigger ask, are you getting that out of the CDA money, or are you're going to take out a loan at a bank at a higher rate than you're asking?
No, you're not gonna do
Like, how would you get the money if we don't budget for it, if there's no room for the budget?
I have had some preliminary discussions with farmers and merchants. And I haven't reached out to other banks, but I know other banks have partnered with communities, and they use their community, was it CRA credits? It's Community Reinvestment Act. You have to use so many. Just the banks are required to put so much money towards community-type projects, and First Financial Center, I want to say in Oconomowoc, partnered with the city on a facade improvement program. Don't quote me on the city. I know it was First Financial as the bank. And this was based off a recommendation I got from Aaron at WEDC. Like, you should talk to your local banks to see if they want to use CRA credits for this. So.
Okay.
I've had some preliminary discussions, but I kind of put them on hold because I didn't know what was going to happen with the CDBG close program. So I do need to follow back up with farmers and merchants to see if they have any interest in partnering on this. But yeah, at this point, I need to sit down with Kim, and I guess why don't I propose this? Next steps will be I'll sit down with Kim to kind of figure out maybe a potential revenue source for this, and then come back to the COW, and then the council, if we're ready for council approval. Does that make sense?
Mayor Tom?
I think it's fair for you to explore whatever options you think are out there for this program.
Yeah.
I think I support it. I think
Yeah.
most of us do, but it would have to be considered along with the budget, I guess.
Nope.
And so I think it's fair for you to identify as many sources as you can and just kind of bring it forth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would be part of the CDA budget or kind of parallel with that, but
Yeah, and there's been many things that still need to get worked out. I'm aware of that. It's just, I've had this concept, and when I brought it to CDA, the first couple CDA meetings, we didn't have a quorum to actually vote on it and move it anywhere. So it's been kind of sitting out there for a while, and tonight I just wanted the discussion just to kind of make sure I'm not crazy, and this is a good program, and it's kind of something that the city should support, and it seems that that's definitely the case. So I'll reach out to Kim and reach out to F&M to see if they have any interest, and see what I can unearth.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. I wasn't familiar with the CRA credit, so I'm gonna do some more research on that myself. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions for Matt on this? Well, thanks for standing up there so long,
No problem.
getting through these items. All right, we'll move on to number 15 now. Update on Eastern Columbia County Joint Municipal Court. I'll let Patrick give a update on that.
Yeah, this, we had put this on the committee of the whole, just pending what the outcomes were of the special meeting on Friday, but regardless of the activity, then I think it's just a good idea to just recap that. So it goes back to the number of discussions that we've had at council level about the city's interest in locating the joint municipal court in Columbus. Lots of back and forth between the city and the court committee about how that would happen, the transition, how we would address some of the questions that had come out from the committee over time, and you were all involved. I'm not sure about Alderman Clark toward the end, but just addressing questions and showing our willingness to have the court located in Columbus. At the last court committee meeting, which Alderman Traxler was present, we put forth our proposal, including the agreement that confirmed a rent-free facility here for the court and the court clerk. Again, we were turned down on that request. Lots of discussion about the environment and the clerk's workspace and feelings on it. That being said, there was an interest in having the council gather on Friday to discuss our status with the court, knowing that our agreement with the joint court would require us to indicate whether we wanted to break away that day. So Friday, we had the meeting, had a lot of, I think, careful discussion, introspection on the situation, and ultimately, the vote was made to inform the Eastern Columbia County Joint Municipal Court that we would be withdrawing, which I did after the meeting. So that's where we stand. At that meeting, we talked about what the city will be facing in light of that decision. We'll need to be talking to the Director of State Courts, passing an ordinance, appointing a judge, and budgeting for that. So I felt that from the discussion that everybody was prepared for those challenges, but ultimately it was a step to create a system here that was good for the community. So that's where we stand.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the update on that, Patrick. And, you know, we've talked at length about this. We did everything that they have asked for, and in the end, they have chosen to not move the court to Columbus, so we'll stay in Randolph. At this point, I guess we're just going to continue discussion on this over the next, weeks and months as we go through budget season, and go from there. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Patrick? Mayor Tolman?
I'm just going to assume that the court may want to come back and negotiate with us further, which is fine. I also think we need to establish a timeline regardless, and we have to stick to it. I think adopting an ordinance at this point is first and foremost.
Yep.
And we can't wait and talk about this for 3 months. We have a lot of things we're going to have to do if we're going to have our own court on January 1st. I think there was a draft ordinance in the information I read that Patrick provided.
too. Yep.
And I think we should do that as soon as possible. If we don't need to break from the court at the end of the year, we renegotiate, so be it. We can get rid of that ordinance, correct, Paul? I mean, we're not wasting any time by moving forward.
Right, well, I would agree with that, and you have a fair amount of urgency right now, because you have budget issues which are probably a little more significant than you think. The ordinance is the easy part of this whole thing. There is a sample, there's also the one that you are part of right now, which of course is a joint court, but it can be molded to an individual court without too much difficulty. But the budgetary issues are front and center right now, and just getting everything put in place. And you can, you've given your letter of resignation basically, effective January 1, and if you swing a deal with the court committee between now and then, that's perfectly fine. You can come back in, and there's no harm, no foul, but don't wait too long. I mean, figure out what your drop dead date is.
Yeah, and the communications we had leading up to the meeting, I think we've got a laundry list of things that we know we need to do. I just think we need to stay on that list and continue to work. So I would be in favor of having a draft ordinance at least here at the next meeting to consider, to keep that,
Yep.
keep the wheels rolling.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so that's where we're at. And I think we still need to operate under the assumption that they're going to accept our resignation and depart from the court on January 1st. So, like Paul said, I think we do need to act with urgency. Do they want us to come back to the table? I haven't seen any indication of that yet. So we will wait and see. In the meantime, we'll move forward. Any other questions? No? All right. Thanks for the update. Up next, number 16, clock tower care and maintenance. Patrick.
I provided a memo in your packet, and the issue is historically, in more ways than one, We've had someone take care of the clock tower, the gearing, the function, the setting the time. It's a little more than just winding your watch. It takes a little bit of care. And we've had an individual take care of that over time. The last person who did that was Tom Meyer, and in 2017 he passed away. But even before that, there was a citizen who was interested in the clock tower, had real interest in the clock tower, and has shown his acumen in terms of historic preservation. He's a member of HLPC. That'd be John Salzwedel. And since Tom left us, DPW has taken it up, just kind of the main items with keeping the clock running. But John has talked to me about taking over that caretaker role going forward. And, in talking with John, I think he does possess the talent and the skills in terms of historic preservation and mechanical aptitude that I think he can help us. But that being said, I didn't want to move forward without bringing this to the council, having a discussion. I foresee this as a contractor type of relationship. I mentioned that, typically with a contractor, we look for several bids. This is a skill that's unique, and I had in the past had seek out, alternatives, and there are very limited other individuals that do this kind of thing. We've got a local person who's very interested, and I think it could be a beneficial arrangement with him. But again, wanted to bring forward to the council for thoughts and questions and concerns.
Okay. I was curious, how many DPW staff are trained at taking care of the clock right now?
Davis has been the one who has been doing things since then. And trained, I guess, he did have the opportunity to go up with Tom towards the end to kind of learn the basics. So it was enough to keep him, keep the clock running, I guess, so to speak.
Okay. I definitely like this idea, simply because people move on from jobs. So at some point, if Davis retires, then, we can't assume that he wants to do this after his career. I think there needs to be more than one person at DPW trained now. So I would like them to consider, maybe starting to introduce it to someone else that, has some interest in it.
Sure.
Just as a backup. And then we also would have, this other person as well as another option. Just, I think you have to have more than one person with the ability to take care of it.
For sure. Yep.
Anyone else? Mayor Tom?
Full disclosure, John Salzwedel is one of the first people I met when I moved to town 20 years ago. He's a personal friend of mine. Patrick told me about this when we met a couple weeks ago, and I had no idea. John has never come to me to talk about this, so I appreciate the fact that he went and talked to Patrick about it. John, he's just a genuine, he loves preservation in the history of the city of Columbus. That's what he's done. He's restored a couple houses. He's been on HLPC for, I'm going to guess, probably close to 10 years. I would give him a personal recommendation any day of the week, but I believe his heart is in this to preserve the clock tower, not to make money. And I can see him going in there and wanting to learn every gear in that building and figure out how it works. So I couldn't think of a better person to want to do that. I'm very glad that John came and talked to Patrick about this. So it seems like he understands the issues with liability, to have a contract in place to treat him as a contractor. So I think it'll be great to have someone. I'm sure John's going to be around a lot longer than me, and I'm sure he's going to want to take care of that clock as long as he's here. So I'm glad he came forward and asked Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions or concerns about this, or just So are you just looking for the okay to have him pursue that further?
Yes, I think if all is okay, I'd continue to work with John and set up an agreement, and we'd go from there.
I think we have consensus for you to move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next up, I have convened to close session pursuant to 19.85 sub 1 sub C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data for any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically the city administrator evaluation process. We will be going into closed session if we vote to do so, and we will not be coming back on the air as no action will be taken. So I would entertain any motions.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Pat, if you could take the roll.
Clark.
Aye.
Millar.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Tylan.
Aye.
Tome.
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, we are in closed session, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.